welcome you back to New York, the 2006 NFL Draft. Through 12 picks, and we'll do a quick review. After months of speculation that Reggie Bush would be the #1 pick overall, the shocker happened last night when the Houston Texans made NC State defensive end Mario Williams the #1 pick overall to help a defense ranked next to last in the NFL. The Saints, as promised, ran their card up to the podium to take that versatile running back, Reggie Bush, with the #2 pick. The Titans chose Texas quarterback Vince Young, fresh off a national title, and he'll be coached by Matt Leinert's former offensive coordinator, Norm Chow. DeBricketchaw Ferguson, talked about as best on the offensive line, goes to the Jets. A.J. Hawk, considered maybe the most sure pick, goes to Green Bay. Vernon Davis, very emotional as he's selected by San Francisco, and he'll help out last year's #1 pick, Alex Smith. We talked about with this draft, very strong in the secondary as Michael Huff goes to Oakland and Dante Whitner, the safety, goes to Buffalo. Ernie Sims, the linebacker, to Detroit. Matt Leinart had to wait 90 minutes, but he is selected by Arizona, where he will be surrounded by a lot of great offensive talent. Next in line, in terms of quarterbacks, Jay Cutler. In a trade from St. Louis, Denver takes Cutler, and Haloti Ngata, the road grader up front on the defensive line, goes to Baltimore. Let's go back to Chris.
All right, Susie, thank you very much. And so now the Cleveland Browns, well, their clock has just about run out as they made the trade with Baltimore. The Browns, since they became the Browns, well, here it is. We're going to wind up and fire on the Cleveland Browns. And why don't we let the second year of Romeo Crennel as head coach and see what the Browns are up to? Again, this is a team that in the first round, since they reestablished themselves as the Browns, not great. Injuries and others.
With the 13th pick in the 2006 NFL Draft, acquired from Baltimore, the Cleveland Browns select Cameron Wimbley, defensive end from Florida State.
Well, this certainly would add up, and that's why the Browns made the choice. And we could easily say that maybe if he becomes a big sack artist, maybe they'll have to change the name to Wembley Stadium. That's a famous place.
Well, if you look at this kid, and you saw Peter Boulware at Florida State do a great job. Wembley there, number 95, recruited by Notre Dame, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Tennessee. Everybody wanted this kid, and he was productive, and he was a sack artist, and he had the ability to play in a 4-3 as an end or go to 3-4 as an outside linebacker. That's what he'll do with the Cleveland Browns. Again, great speed off the edge, tough kid, and very intelligent football player. Graduated early from high school, missed 3 games late this season with a knee injury, but before that, he had not missed a game his entire career. 17 quarterback hurries despite missing 3 games. Talented kid, a great kid. I saw him at the Senior Bowl, talked to him in the airport when he was getting ready to come home. He's just very serious about the game of football. Great work ethic for it, and a kid that fits this team and can learn and watch a great veteran like Willie McGinnis go about his business and get the job done.
And that's a key, because when they picked up Willie McGinnis, it wasn't just to get Willie's physical presence, to get his professional presence, how you get ready every day to be a pro. So Wembley has a great character reference right there.
Absolutely, with Willie. Here are the Browns, since they re-became the Browns, if that's a word, in '99. Very high picks. Tim Couch didn't work out. Courtney Brown and Gerard Warren are Broncos. William Green, trouble. Jeff Faden is the starting center. Kellen Winslow, 2 years of varied injuries. Braylon looked great. I really think he's going to be excellent. But, again, unfortunately for them, through a variety of reasons, have not gotten the juice out of the picks that they should. But maybe the worm is turning a little bit with Wembley.
And boom, they hope Winslow, Kellen Winslow, tight end, who they have a lot of high hopes for, is back for maybe minicamp in June or training camp. They're hoping Braylon Edwards, worst case scenario, maybe October 1st. They feel like they'll get Braylon Edwards back a little later, and then Kellen Winslow will be ready for training camp.
Well, that would be great. You could see it was a 6th, so they pick up a 6th in all this. And here come those outside. There are more teams, Tom, and you played it.
Yes.
There are more teams playing 3-4 these days. We see that coming back, in and out of vogue. And so a good dozen teams or so. What does it mean to play on the outside?
Well, it means that you have that ability to be flexible on the outside, especially with a guy like Wembley, who can put his hands down on the ground and rush the passer. You hope he also, at just over under 250 pounds, can also stand up and be that outside rush presence as well. Maybe drop into a zone, work in space a little bit. Certainly you work on that technique, but I think that's what makes this such a defensive, outstanding defensive draft, because you not only have a pretty good group of linebackers, but you got this hybrid group, this group of guys who rush the defensive end spot, but also can be projected to play the stand-up spot in the 3-4. So it makes this draft, to me, an outstanding defensive draft because of that group of guys.
Yeah, and more linebackers and DBs than usual, especially linebackers in the past few years. Now on the clock, and this is where I think the draft, well, it's already been very interesting again, but now, if you agree that I do, that the Philadelphia Eagles, although, 6-10, a year removed from the Super Bowl, have earned a mulligan for a variety of reasons. Injuries, T.O. situation, you can make a long list. Here go the Eagles, who have a lot of picks. And the Eagles are now on the clock, picking at 14. They got a lot of, if you want to go defensive players, there's a lot of certainly quality there. And we can talk about the Eagles, who all of a sudden went from runaway winners in the NFC East when Washington and the Giants and Dallas were all 6-10. Now the Eagles are the team that was below 500 and everybody else. This is a tough division. So the Eagles trying to get back up to 1. So lots of things have changed in this division, starting with a healthy Donovan McNabb back for them, and no T.O. elsewhere in the division. And in case you hadn't heard, Mike, he's in Dallas.
When you study what Andy Reid likes to do in drafts, often he's been at the bottom of the first round, at least recently, where he trades up into the middle first round. You usually get an offensive or defensive lineman. So you got a couple. You got Broderick Buckley, the defensive tackle from Florida State, but you also have Winston Justice, the offensive tackle from USC. And you mentioned all the athletic guys, Tommy, that there are in this league. One of the problems right now is finding enough athletic offensive linemen to block those guys up. But Winston Justice has some character red flags, and those type of character red flags will make him iffy here for Philadelphia. It'll be interesting to see what they do.
Look, Philadelphia can go a lot of ways. But look, this division. Sal, is that where we're headed? Let's to Mel. I'm sorry, Sal sounds like Mel. This is what happens when you have 5,000 people expecting to see Frank Sinatra. Instead, we have a draft expecting to see the Rockettes, and we get Mel instead. So I can't hear these things. Mel, Philly could go a lot of directions, and I just think this division, if you believe that they are going to be back, which I do, and we already saw it, Giants won it, Washington playoff team, Dallas almost in playoffs. Boy, every game in this division is going to be pivotal this coming year.
No question about it. I think if you look at Broderick Bunkley, what he would mean next to Mike Patterson. They drafted him in the first round late last year. Bunkley is a kid who had a great season at Florida State. Didn't do a lot before that, but I think you put a chiseled frame like that with all that strength and that explosiveness and that penetration ability next to Mike Patterson out of USC, who's got ability as well. All of a sudden, your defensive tackle spot is awfully impressive.
Well, the Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock with about 7.5 minutes to go. And then very soon we'll have all the teams above 500 last year. Just about midway in the draft.
ESPN's coverage of the draft continues. The Eagles, round 1, 15th overall selection, are officially on the clock. Welcome back to the NFL Live portion of the show. Trey Wingo here with Ron Jaworski. Jaws, the Eagles went from 2004 winning every game in their division, in 2005 losing every game in their division. A dramatic 180. What is the state of the Eagles right now?
Well, there's no question the NFC East has gotten a lot tougher, but the Eagles' wounds were mostly self-inflicted. The T.O. situation, Donovan getting hurt, as well as a number of other players. They have addressed those problems in the offseason via team meetings. They have gotten together, cleared the air, and are now moving forward. Now, the other thing about Donovan McNabb, he's healthy. I saw him over the NovaCare complex a couple weeks ago. He looked like he's in terrific shape. He's working out with his receivers, which I think is very important, not going out to Arizona working with other wide receivers. So I think the fact that the Eagles now are refocused is a real advantage going into the 2006 season.
They lose their offensive coordinator. Brad Childress goes to become Minnesota. Will Andy Reid change the style of offense he runs, or will it still be a sort of a dink and dunk passing game to supplement a running game?
Well, in title, they lost Brad Childress, the offensive coordinator, to Minnesota. Marty Mornhinweg has taken over as the offensive coordinator, who was there and knew the system. But let's get real here. The offensive coordinator, this is Andy Reid's offense. It is his design, and he actually said they may run a little bit more this year. I'm not so sure that'll happen.
Well, we've heard that before from Andy Reid. We'll find out if it actually translates to what happens on the field. That'll do it from here. Let's go back to Susie Kalber in New York. Susie.
Trey, let's go back to the number 10 pick. The Arizona Cardinals took quarterback Matt Leinart. Through our Coors Light video conferencing, we welcome in the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, Denny Green. Denny, what were your thoughts on choosing Matt Leinart?
Well, we were very excited about it. We think he's one of the best players in the entire country. We had him very highly rated. We liked all three of the quarterbacks. We like Vince Young. We love Matt Leinart. We like Jay Cutler. But we really love Matt with his capabilities to win and lead and also to compete. We think he's a perfect fit for our high-octane offense.
Well, at this moment, we know that Kurt Warner is number 1 on the depth chart. What's the plan?
Well, the plan is for Kurt Warner to be number 1 and lead us to a playoff game and hopefully playoff victories. Matt Leinart will come in and battle John Navarre for the number 2 spot. Whoever doesn't get 2 gets 3. And what we like is that we've said we have a good, strong position of wide receivers. That's a good area for us. Now we feel that we can say that the quarterback position is a good depth area for us also.
Whether it's Kurt or it's Matt, clearly one of the issues has been offensive line. How do you feel you've addressed that?
Well, that's what the draft is for. That's what unrestricted free agency is for. We signed one unrestricted free agency, and Milford Brown is going to help us. We have many picks to come for in the draft, which will help us. We have players that have to be developed that will help us also. Keep in mind now, we've had 14 players that have made our team that we've drafted in the last 2 years. We would love to draft 7 more and make that 21, but it's time for those guys to do a much better job. It's time for me to do a much better job and get this team to the playoffs and get some wins. We got a brand new stadium. It's unbelievable, one of the best in the National Football League. We're going to fill it up, and bringing Matt Leinart to the Valley is going to be huge for the Valley of the Sun.
Denny, we look forward to seeing that new stadium on Monday Night Football.
It's going to be fun.
Chris, back to you.
All right, Susie, thank you very much. The Eagles are on the clock, and you understand the smile with Denny Green. And if you know Andy Reid, some of us do, he always looks offense, defensive lineman, and we thought that Bunkley would be gone a few picks ago. I mean, I got to think maybe the cab got stuck in Buffalo, but I think it works in Philadelphia. I got to think that they would think of a defensive line. Remember, they signed Darren Howard.
Outstanding.
I mean, if this is the pick, they could be pretty fortified here.
With the 14th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Roderick Bunkley, defensive tackle, Florida State.
And that's a good pick for Philadelphia, Tom, because let's run through them, you know, in the trenches where you really need this day and age 6 and 7 guys anyway.
Well, you know, you got to have the rotation, but when you think about a kid like this who's so big, so strong, such a physical presence inside, you put him with Darren Howard, you've got Javon Curse on the outside, Mike Patterson on the inside, you get this rotation. There it is right there. He bench pressed 225 44 times. He will be a tremendous force inside now.
I mean, I think you look at Broderick Bunkley, the year he came through with for the Seminoles, a defensive line where he just took over games. He set an FSU record with those 25 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. You saw what he did at the combine. I mean, talk about 20-yard shuttle. All the physical and athletic attributes that he showed made him a early to mid first-round draft choice. Here's a kid, production-wise this season, 9 sacks. You talk about a guy up until this point was not a real factor. Didn't have a super high grade until this year. In fact, his 66 tackles this year was more than his previous 3 years combined. Yet he made himself in one season a high pick, and those 44 reps, as TJ mentioned, off the charts. And the skill level that he showed indicates that he can be a penetrating defensive tackle.
Right.
He can get behind the line of scrimmage and do some damage. And next to Mike Patterson, they drafted in the late first round last year. All of a sudden, the Eagles' defensive tackle is very strong.
Florida State Seminoles with 3 now guys picked in the first round, and it's been a first round of teammates. Some of them obviously well publicized, like Bush and Leinart from USC. Now they're gone. Ohio State with 2 defensive players in the top 10. Texas with an offense and defense, and Young and Huff. And now 3 from Florida State. It's been kind of a closed club here in the first round, as it turns out. When we return, St. Louis is now on the clock, and we'll debate. Are the Eagles back, or do they have a lot of work to do? Stay with us. We are back, and we see some of the top defensive backs waiting. There's Jason Allen, Tennessee, waiting for his name. And then the intriguing player, Antonio Cromartie, Florida State. Not a lot of action with injuries, but he's waiting, and the crowd just noticed there he is. And perhaps soon we're going to have a run. Ty Hill sitting out there. Perhaps soon we have run on corners. We've seen a couple of safeties go already. St. Louis is picking here because they traded with Denver, and now picking up a third in the process to move down. Here's the Rams.
With the 15th pick acquired by trade in this 2006 NFL Draft, the St. Louis Rams select Ty Hill, defensive back from Clemson.
So now, first of all, we had Ty Hill, many of us thought, at 11 for the Rams, so they moved down and still got their player, Mel. And now, here go the corners, perhaps.
And you thought going into this past season that cornerback was a strength for this football team. But you look at Jeremy Butler off an injury. You look at a guy like Travis Fisher, disappointing year. You look at a guy like Ty Hill, though, 5'9½", 185 pounds. You see the ability there, the ball skills, the ability to locate the football and make the play. And I tell you, a kid who's very tough, has that spunky approach. He showed that down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl practices when I really thought he was one of the top 2 or 3 players on the field. You see him there locked up in one-on-one coverage against Norris Moss. And it's Norris Moss, one of the fastest players in the draft. Was he able to explode away, accelerate away from Hill? No, he wasn't. Ty Hill at the combine ran a 4.36 40 at 5'9½", 185 pounds. Also had a 41-inch vertical jump. Tough kid, can get off that corner in blitz situations and do the job. Remember, recruited as a running back, played running back early on with the Clemson Tigers. There again at the combine, showing that speed. I thought, despite the fact we had some bigger corners, I thought he was a best pure cover guy in this draft. The Senior Bowl solidified his position in the mid-first round. Hey, look, Ram defense that needed some help with the situation at quarterback.
Yeah, they went south in a hurry. They were never great even when they were winning divisions defensively, but now you saw what happened last year.
Well, and they have been active in the free agent market addressing their defense this offseason. And the key guys there, Will Witherspoon, the linebacker from Carolina Panthers, one of the best in the league. And then you had a Leroy Glover, a veteran defensive tackle. Not to mention Jim Haslett.
Yes.
Defensive coordinator, former Saints coach.
Right.
They've done a lot to improve their defense.
Yeah, and a new regime in St. Louis. Here's the trade again. Denver and St. Louis swap picks, as we said. St. Louis moved down for. Still got a guy that we had slotted for him at 11, and they pick up a high third. That was San Francisco's. So Ty Hill is gone, and you point out Jim Haslett, which is a good thought, and a new regime in St. Louis. I mean, everything that's going on, we have not seen an offseason like this as far as the head coaches. 10 teams with new head coaches, 7 of them with first-time head coaches, all of whom were NFL assistants. Not a big college name coming in, like Scott Linehan will be the head coach at St. Louis, like we saw at the top with Houston and Kubiak and New Orleans, et cetera, in Detroit. So a real change, not so much of the guard, but when you change 10 out of 32 head coaches, 7 who have not had head coach experience, keep in mind it's a flux year or two in the NFL. Now, back to the cornerback run, Mel. Who are we looking at now?
Well, I think you got a lot of talent. There's no question. That's a position of strength, especially mid to late first round. Antonio Cromartie, we've highlighted the last couple weeks as one of the hot guys in this first round mix. Now in a position maybe to be a Miami Dolphin. His workout was extraordinary, even though he missed this past year with a knee injury. You see a guy like Jonathan Joseph, kind of a one-year wonder, former junior college transfer, injured in 2004, but a nice season and certainly showed great potential. Richard Marshall out of Fresno State played for a great football coach. Pat Hill, one of the most underrated head coaches in all of college football, developing first-round talent like Logan Mankins last year on the offensive line. Marshall, a late first, early second. Ashton Ubodi in that late first, early second-round mix, as is Kelly Jennings. And not on that list is another kid, Jason Allen out of Tennessee. Some people think Allen's a corner. Some think a free safety. So you're getting a lot of value in the secondary. Manny Lawson, the defensive end outside linebacker, still on the board. Winston Justice, as Ward talked about. And Chad Greenway, linebacker, Iowa. Those are the non-defensive backs still on the board that are in this position of the draft.
This is where the draft changes, because everybody up to now below 5. There were nobody who was 7-9 last year. There was only one 8-8 team last year, and that was Atlanta. And they're not picking in the first round. So we've gone from 6 and 10s, and now here you go to Miami and the 9 and 7 teams. It's really a shift. So now the teams that are almost in the playoffs and playoffs, boom, usually get about 8-8 teams. Not the case. So here comes Miami, Minnesota, Dallas, San Diego, Kansas City teams almost in the playoffs last year, as we're midway through the first round for the 2006 draft. We'll be back.
I'm Michael Huff.
I'm Jay Cutler. I'm Reggie Bush. You're watching the 2006 NFL Draft
On ESPN.
Miami Dolphins now on the clock, 16th overall pick in the first round. Where will they go? Welcome back to the NFL Live set. Trey Wingo, Mark Schlereth, Merrill Hodge, Ron Jaworski. You know, this draft really changed, guys, before the draft with Drew Brees going to New Orleans and Dante Culpepper going to Miami. Culpepper may not be there, Merrill, for the start of the season. What can he bring to the Dolphins?
Well, explosiveness, and that's when you look at offenses in the National Football League. If you can attack vertically, you become a special offense, and that's what Dante Culpepper will bring to the Miami Dolphins. Look at the press coverage, a blitz look. The goal for this one, if you can throw the ball down the field, you have to make the one-on-ones pay. Dante Culpepper identifies the pre-snap read. First of all, he holds the safety in the middle, and I'm telling you, folks, this is a rare, rare throw if you can throw it to the wide side of the field. From the end zone, though, you'll see Culpepper's responsibility. He must hold that safety on the hash at the narrow side of the field. Does a great job by looking at the wide receiver on that side. He knows where he wants to go. He wants to go on the backside. But here's the amazing throw. Very few quarterbacks in the NFL can make this throw. We have had 3 quarterbacks go already in the draft. There's only one quarterback that's been drafted thus far that can make a throw like that, and that would be Jay Cutler. That's why the other two, to me, have a lot of weaknesses coming to the National Football League, but the Miami Dolphins do not have that weakness as far as Merle, what you just showed us was a healthy Dante Culpepper. You have to remember he's coming off three torn ligaments in his knee. That is not easy to come back from. If he is healthy, he has some outstanding receivers to throw to. When you look at Marty Booker and Chris Chambers on the outside, Randall McDaniel back on the McMichael back on the inside, you have weapons. Now, the question mark for the Dolphins will be that offensive line. But if Culpepper is healthy, they now have, as Merrill showed, a guy that can attack the entire football field. Long, short, intermediate, sideline to sideline, Trey.
Yeah, but he's not healthy, and they're making preparations for him not to be there maybe halfway through the season. Right now, the only other Dolphins quarterback on the roster is Cleo Lemon. The Joey Harrington deal is still out there, but it officially has not been done yet. We'll see if that gets done, and Joey would leave Detroit and head down to Miami. Dolphins are on the clock. We send it back to Boomer in New York.
All right, Trey, thank you very much. I believe Joey Harrington will be in the Dolphins, whether it's a trade for like a 6th or at the June 1st so he's cut. But you guys already detailed Culpepper, and that, of course, is the big story in Miami coming up. Another story, of course, Ricky Williams gone for the whole year, suspended. So Ronnie Brown, who they drafted #1 last year with the 2nd overall pick, how will he be lugging the ball all the time? Miami and Nick Saban, you know, many years, is he going to be a coach? Is he going to be... What did they do? They won their last 6 games. They ended up 9-7. His coordinators are Tom Capers on defense, impressive. Mike Mularkey, the Bills' ex-head coach, as offensive. Miami, in a hurry, in 1 year, is a team on the come. Dante Culpepper, 3 knee ligaments. I don't know that you can just say, even though he's making the throws, you don't know week 1, although the Dolphins are very upbeat about it, Morton.
No, they are upbeat about it. And you know, it's funny. It's the anterior cruciate ligament that always keeps these guys out for so long. It's that posterior cruciate ligament that really bothers quarterbacks because of their dropbacks and what have you. But I know this much. Clearly, the Miami did not want to have to give up a 2nd-round draft pick for a quarterback because they don't have a lot. Nick Saban values those picks. They were very interested in Drew Brees, obviously concerned about Brees' shoulder, enough so that they would rather use a 2nd-round pick to get a quarterback coming off major knee surgery. They do think he'll be close around September. If not, Joey Harrington will be there, I believe.
It's not just the ligament in his knee, but it's the ligament in his head also. You got to think about Dante Culpepper coming into the league, and he had Chris Carter in his ear all the time when it was time to play. And then Chris Carter moved on, and Randy Moss was there. Last year was his first year without either of those guys, and he had to self-motivate himself to get ready. And he wasn't able to do that. He had a tough season. I talked to Jason Garrett, the quarterback coach for the Miami Dolphins. He knows he has to get Dante Culpepper to be the leader that he can be.
You're not going to have any problem with motivation when Nick Saban's your head coach.
That's right.
Trust me.
That's right.
That would be the case. You better watch out for your posterior if Nick Saban is the head coach. The pick is in for Miami, year 2. Nick Saban.
With the 16th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jason Allen, defensive back from the University of Tennessee.
Well, we just saw Jason Allen from Tennessee waiting, and there's the celebration right now. Hey, look, one thing we know about Nick Saban and the way they play defense, size matters big time, and defensive backs, you better be a big player. 6'1", 208 Mel, certainly a big DB.
And ironically tried to be recruited to LSU by Nick Saban. So Nick knew Jason Allen, had a lot of information, a lot of detailed study on Jason Allen coming out of the high school ranks, and wanted him obviously in LSU. He went to Tennessee, had a heck of a career, played cornerback as well as free safety. Tough kid, 6'1", 208-pounder, and has that linebacker mentality, played cornerback, as I said, very effectively, as well as free safety with that 4.41 speed and just under a 40-inch vertical jump. Now, he had that hip injury in October in a game against Georgia. There was a concern how far he'd drop, but here at the Combine, showing again that he did not lose any speed, was going to be ready to go and at 100%. I talked to Jason Allen a couple weeks ago, and this kid is highly motivated. He knew he was a top 10 pick going into the season, thought he had dropped into the second round, and certainly was ecstatic to learn that he was in the middle of the first round, either to Miami. He wanted to go there because of the Nick Saban connection. Minnesota, Dallas, I've been talking about with Bill Parcells, needing a free safety desperately, but for a Miami football team that had Travis Daniels and Nick coached at LSU, he gives them dual versatility more.
Well, you mentioned Nick's familiarity with the Southeastern Conference, and that's true. You saw him dip there last year for 2 or 3 players.
Here it is.
Andy Crowder of Florida. And that's because Nick has recruited every one of these guys. You're right. He has more information on guys who played in that conference. Right. He recruited them, and he played against them.
And he knows all the coaches. He knows who to talk. Might as well use it a couple of years from now. He won't know the kids anymore in that conference. Right.
Hey, let me tell you about Jason Allen, though. As I watch Jason Allen, I love him, and I hear people say you can play him at corner. I studied him on film. In this league, he will be a safety, but you can let him play some coverage. You can't put him on a corner all the time against the receivers that play in the NFL. He would have a tough go at that, but he will be a great safety because you see he will bring up and put a big hit on him. You know, one of the things that we're seeing is I think the recent history of the NFL is the hard-hitting safeties, the guy who come up and hit like the linebackers, but I think that you are now seeing these coaches go back to that safety who can run, who can play that last line of defense for you, who will not allow you to get beat over the top, and I think that Jason Allen fits that bill.
As well as having the ability to cover the slot guy.
That's correct. That's correct. Cover, but also can get deeper than the deepest.
Miami made a quantum leap last year under Nick Saban, and now the Dallas Cowboys, almost a playoff team a year ago with the they picked Minnesota is next, then Dallas, then San Diego, then Kansas City. Your almost teams. Here comes that run. Vikings first pick for new coach Brad Childress coming up.
ESPN's coverage of the NFL Draft is brought to you by Hummer H3, official vehicle of the 2006 NFL Draft. Hummer like nothing else. And Wendy's 4 new Frescata sandwiches. Do Wendy's. Do what tastes right. Under Armour Draft Flashback.
The clock is winding down on the Vikings. What's going on here?
You gotta like 7 players. There's 7 players in all of America that you can pick.
If Leftwich is your guy, you get it in now.
Right, well, because you remember, pass just means 5, 10, 15 seconds. Doesn't matter.
The card is in, but whose card? Whose card? The suspense is killing us.
With the 8th selection in the 2003 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Byron Leftwich, quarterback from
Minnesota can run up at any time with their pick, but Carolina's going to beat them to the clock.
The Carolina Panthers select Jordan Gross, offensive tackle from Utah.
Well, here comes Baltimore with speed, Carl Lewis-like.
Maybe Minnesota beat Baltimore, though.
Let's see.
With the 9th selection in the 2003 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Kevin Williams, defensive tackle from Oklahoma State.
My God, this is like a toll booth in New York and rush hour.
Selection in the 2003 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Terrell Suggs, defensive end from Arizona State.
I never say anything like this. This is great.
I got to tell you, that was unbelievable. We've sat for a lot of drafts and have talk about being in on the shoulder in the entry ramp, and everybody else was in the passing lane. Poor Denny, you know, who had coached the Vikings for so many years, of all years, that was the year he was sitting with us. At least they got Kevin Williams out of it. At least they got a hell of a player out of it. That was. Let me make a prediction. The Brad Childress, the Vikings, they're not going to be late with the pick. Let's hope not. That was hilarious. At any rate, they're on the clock. Minnesota, you got 5 minutes plus. Don't be late. The Minnesota Vikings. We ready to talk about Vikes because they obviously have undergone a huge change. A huge change. Not only the coach and Mike Tyson, all obviously the Love Boat, obviously Culpepper, all that gone. Brad Childress, who under Andy Reid for many, many years, is now the new head coach of the Vikings. They picked up Steve Hutchinson from Seattle, but one thing they did was they had a guy who won with them before, Brad Johnson, and they won most of the games late in the season, 7 out of 9, to finish 9-7. And of all the new head coaching jobs open, this is an intriguing spot. This is a pretty decent team.
It is, and you got Brad Childress coming in, though, and making what was one of the most controversial decisions of the offseason in trading your franchise quarterback in Dante Culpepper. And I really believe what happened there is Childress was hoping that Culpepper would totally embrace the new regime, that you wouldn't be rehabbing down in Florida, that you'd come up to Minnesota, that you'd learn the new offense. And Culpepper never engaged in that way and never once talked about football. And so when you have Brad Johnson coming off the winning year, and now you have a draft in which you have a first-round pick here, you have some defensive needs, maybe at linebacker, but you got 2 2s and 2 3s to get a young quarterback to develop. And there had been an internal discussion about Atlanta quarterback Matt Schaub, the backup to Michael Vick, but there was never any communication between the Falcons and the Vikings on Schaub, and the Falcons would not trade that pick for a 17.
I think you hit on linebacker. I think Greenway is out there, which would be a good pick, a Big Ten player, or maybe Ryans if you want to go a different sort of player. I know Brad Childress is an offensive coach, but I'd be surprised if they didn't go with those guys at linebacker. Greenway might be the favorite. He might be. And the pick's on time.
The 17th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Chad Greenway, linebacker from the University of Iowa.
Like I said, Greenway might be the favorite. A Big Ten player playing in Minnesota. And this is an intriguing young man from a neighboring state in South Dakota.
It is a neat area. Outside linebacker considered a problematic situation. Dontarius Thomas, former Auburn Tiger, has not developed like they had hoped. They did add Ben Lieber. You have E.J. Henderson in the middle. But a Chad Greenway, over 400 career tackles with the Iowa Hawkeyes. And here's a kid, you talk about productivity. Well, he came back from a knee injury in 2002 and was right there with A.J. Hawk every step of the way as one of the top linebackers in the Big Ten. Also had some help from Abdul Hodge, who's right there inside with him, number 52. Should be a second-round pick. And he's a good football player as well. People say, well, he's not a destructive tackler. He's not a real physical performer. But I tell you what, you can't argue with the production. You can't argue with the way he goes about his business. Well coached under Kirk Ferentz. All those Iowa guys come into the NFL ready to play football at a high level. What made him and solidified his position in the first round was showing the kind of speed that we knew he had at Iowa. But at the combine, he only ran 4.76. Came back at an individual workout, ran 4.55. Increase in every area. Vertical jump up from 33.5 inches to 38. Bench press reps up from 16 to 19. So in all areas, his individual workout better than the combine. I think when they went back and looked at film, that all worked in conjunction to make him a pick that I thought he could go to St. Louis as high as 11. Here he is at 17 to the Vikings.
And you're looking at these Big Ten linebackers because this is a spot where Chad Greenway, no, he could have gone to the Rams at 11. They traded down. They still passed on him. But you also got A.J. Hawk of Ohio State, the Bobby Carpenter of Ohio State as well, a guy that the Dallas Cowboys now on the clock certainly have been considering. So you're seeing these Big Ten linebackers. They're lunch bell, blue-collar guys.
And Mort, the Vikings had 2 second-round picks. They picked up one from Miami. You got to believe, Mort, they look at a quarterback like a Kellen Clemens from Oregon or a Brody Coyle from Alabama. You have a kid Jackson out of Alabama State, Tavares Jackson, who's got the strong arm, Charlie Whitehurst Clemson. In that second round, I would expect one of those 2 picks to be a quarterback.
And with Brad Johnson, they have a guy that they truly believe will get them through. Brad Johnson played some of his best football in a long time last year. And Brad Childress is very confident Johnson can get them through this year, maybe beyond, develop a quarterback later.
Yeah, but I think when you look at Greenway, when I was assessing the linebackers and looking at some highlight packages of him, the term that strikes you is polished and smooth. I know we use it for linebackers, not necessarily a big impact guy, but seemed to do everything well. Drop into coverage, man coverage, blitz. He did everything well, and he worked in concert with Abdul Hodge, the other inside linebacker, as well as any two people in this draft.
Just file this away for what it's worth. You know, the Vikings, who came on strong, as we say, and certainly can win with Brad Johnson. After all, he's won a Super Bowl. Lost in all the shuffle that we tried to shove that in there with Culpepper gone, etc. This is a team that drafted arguably the best guard in it signed arguably the best guard in football in an interesting way from transition. Steve Hutchinson from the NFC champion Seattle Seahawks. Veteran fullback Tony Richardson, Chiefs. Linebacker Ben Lieber, pretty good player with San Diego. Running back Chester Taylor, who at times, interesting with Baltimore. Tank Williams, admittedly off an injury, strong safety. You might remember him with the Titans. My point is, this is an interesting team to keep your eye on in a division where Chicago won it, but Detroit and Green Bay were nowhere. I mean, you can move here.
And Boomer,
just keep your eye on
that. Guys that love football. That's why he got Steve Hutchinson, and a Chad Greenway is that type of player. He wants guys who love football.
And as you mentioned, they have 2 seconds and 2/3. Interesting team today. When we return, another interesting team. The Tuna and the Dallas Cowboys, and I think they picked up T.O. I don't remember. We'll be back.
With the first selection in the 2006 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Mario Williams, defensive end, North Carolina State. With the second choice, the New Orleans Saints select Reggie Bush, running back, USC. The Tennessee Titans select Vince Young, quarterback, University of Texas.
Everybody on their feet for the Jets pick here in the 2006 draft.
The New York Jets select DeBrickashaw Ferguson, offensive tackle, University of Virginia.
You certainly have to feel for Matt Leinart. Now the likelihood is that he will fall at least to number 10.
With the 10th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Matt Leinart, quarterback, USC.
All right, we are back in New York. We are in the second half of the first round. And I tell you what, we kind of had a feeling after last night's change that Reggie Bush was not the number 1 pick, that Mario Williams went to Houston. Reggie Bush did go to New Orleans. We had a feeling that the quarterbacks would fall this way, although to the average person who might be just kind of following the draft casually, unlike Mel for the last 51 weeks, they're surprised that Leinart went to 10. It kind of, except for maybe Buffalo's pick a little bit, pretty much as we thought. We told you that the draft changed here. Here are the teams with the winning records from last year. One of those would be Miami, who reeled off 6 wins to close out at 9-7. Coach Saban with Susie Culver. Suze?
Well, every team's dream here is to get to Super Bowl 41. Dolphin Stadium plays host. Nick Saban working to get his team there. Nick, with your first pick, Jason Allen, tell us just how far that relationship with Allen goes back.
Well, Jason came to our camp on several occasions when I was in college at LSU, and we certainly developed a relationship. We know his family. We have a tremendous amount of respect for him as a person as well as a player, and he's certainly the kind of guy we love having in our organization.
There's obvious ties to the SEC, having coached at LSU. But last year you went with 3 picks in the first 4 rounds. What is it about those SEC players that you like so much?
Well, I guess the fact that we know them a little bit and have a lot of respect for the league and the quality of players in that league is something that is our respect has made it easy for us to pick those kind of players. Those 3 players did an outstanding job for us last year, and we're hopeful that Jason Allen will have the same kind of start here this year.
Nick, on the other side of the ball, what's a realistic timetable for Dante Culpepper coming back off of knee surgery?
Well, Dante has done fantastic in being here in Miami, working hard at his rehab, fitting in very nicely with the rest of our players, starting to become a leader with our team. So we're really, really excited about his potential. We're certainly not going to put him in a position that's not something that would benefit him physically, but we're very encouraged by his progress and very happy with where he is right now.
Nick, thanks for the time. We'll see you throughout the weekend.
Okay, Susie, thank you.
Chris, let's go back to you.
All right, Suze, Coach Saban, thank you very much. An interesting team. And now here come the Dallas Cowboys on the clock. And you don't think that there's some legacy with the look at this, the triplets. They're here. Mike, I thought you were with us. There's Troy, Emmett, and Michael.
Michael's put on a little weight.
And they don't, as soon as they're on the screen, booed in New York. Meanwhile, Mike, what? You're in two places at once.
Hey, that's great. That looks great up there. That lets you know the Cowboy fans, they are
You're
everywhere.
outnumbered here.
They are, just a little bit.
Well, this is Troy's year to go in the Hall of Fame. We'll see him this summer. Maybe you, Mike. Certainly Emmett will follow. Meanwhile, how did the Cowboys do since the gun went off at the end of their 9-7 season? They got a wide receiver you might have heard of. They got a pretty darn accurate kicker, Mike Vanderjagt from the Colts, Fabini from the Jets. But the big name right there, of course, is Terrell Owens, who once upon a time danced on the star. Now he hopes to be the star in Texas Stadium. The Dallas Cowboys starting to change over that defense. Had two big first-round picks in Ware and Spears last year that delivered. And so now the pick is in for the Cowboys trying to continue to run.
With the 18th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Bobby Carpenter, linebacker, Ohio State.
Well, certainly Bill Parcells knows his dad, Rob Carpenter, the one-time running back of the Oilers and the New York Football Giants, a pretty tough football player. So is his son.
He really is. You talk about A.J. Hawk. Well, number 42 came there, highly recruited, and did a great job. He can play him inside, outside. In this 3-4, you would think he would be on the opposite side of DeMarcus Ware. He had 8 sacks this past season. Really showed the ability to get after the quarterback and do a heck of a job in that scenario with the Buckeyes. Unfortunately, late this past year against Michigan, actually on the first play of that game, broke his ankle, missed the Fiesta Bowl against Notre Dame. But you watch him week in and week out. An intense kid, loves the game, and Bill Parcells obviously likes the bloodlines with his father being Rob Carpenter. And there's no question in that 3-4 scheme, the fact that he proved he could get after the quarterback. You have DeMarcus Ware. He had the big rookie year. He had Banks and Taylor with the Giants, Parcells did. I thought Manny Lawson would get some consideration here out of NC State and may be the pick, but they kept the same type of player. Right. Get that same type of player with Bobby Carpenter.
Yes, for a moment, here's his dad, who was a tough running back, blocking and running for the Oilers when Earl Campbell was just a pup. And then with the New York Football Giants, here he is, oddly enough, running against the Dallas Cowboys. Had a big playoff game at Philadelphia. I remember that one. I actually covered that a long time ago. It was Dick Vermeil's last game the first time around, way back when, in the early 80s. And so in the bloodlines, there is something that matters there. And, of course, that type of backer inside.
Well, you've got the 3-4 defense where, you know, Coach has said you can never have enough linebackers, good, solid linebackers. And I think that Carpenter is he's high octane. He plays every single down. He's actually got better size than A.J. Hawk in terms of the guy you're putting out there. He can play inside. He can play outside. And I thought that this was another guy. Now we're talking about, to me, one of the safest picks in the draft is Bobby Carpenter. I thought one of the best picks in the draft was the guy A.J. Hawk who played around him.
Bill loves big linebackers, and that's exactly what this guy is. He's a big linebacker, and he'll go after you. He'll hit you. Bill will take him and put him through one of those Bill Parcells training camp, and he will come out a real good linebacker.
Free safety, though, still a major problem area. Teams going over the top. Keith Davis really struggled. You thought Jason Allen would have been a possibility. He's already gone and off the board. The Nick Saban and Miami Dolphins. Obviously, Michael Huff, you knew he was going early. Dante Whitner went a little earlier than we had thought. So the free safety position for Cowboy fans and Bill Parcells still has to be addressed.
Right. Well, certainly we've only scratched the surface. We haven't really done it. We didn't get the Philly end, but we got all day. And we got the Dallas end of T.O. becoming a member of the Dallas Cowboys. By the way, week 5, they're playing in Philadelphia. Week 16, Philadelphia on Christmas Day is going to be in Dallas. More on that in a moment, but the next 2 picks are San Diego and Kansas City. And with our Sean Salisbury are a couple of guys who might be interested in this pick. Sean Merriman, who went at this time last year in the first round, and what a rookie year he had. And Trent Green continues to ring up the yards and the points at quarterback for the Chiefs. Sean?
Thanks, Boomer. A couple AFC West guys. Sean, let's start with you. Drew Brees out, quarterback in New Orleans. Phillip Rivers in. What tells you that Phillip Rivers can lead this team?
Well, he has a lot of confidence. I mean, the team backs him 110%. And with a guy coming in with that much confidence, we know that he can get the job done. And besides, he's been in the league for a couple of years, and he knows the playbook well, so he shouldn't have a problem at all.
Well, how did the players receive this? When Drew Brees, a popular player in San Diego with the Chargers, kind of a different player than Phillip Rivers, how did the players receive it?
We all accepted him well. I mean, it was unfortunate that Drew Brees left, and we didn't expect it. But as players realizing it's a business, he moved on, and he's in a better place for himself now, his family. And, we just can't wait to see Phillip on the field now.
Are you a playoff team with Rivers at quarterback in 06?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, not just a playoffs, but we're looking to go all the way this year after we get to these guys right here.
That's a big definitely right there. I like that. I like
definitely, no problem. Trent Green, Mike Solari, former offensive line coach, now the offensive coordinator. Got a new head coach in Herman Edwards replacing Dick Vermeil. Al Saunders gone. Does the offense change, and does it affect you guys as an offense?
You know what? The offense isn't going to change. Mike Solari has been with us for 5 years. He knows the system. He's going to step right in. Al Saunders will be missed greatly because of he was very imaginative, came up with game plan every week, came up with new plays every week, going to be able to attack that. Terry Shea was an offensive coordinator in college and at the pro level, is going to be there as quarterback coach. He's been with us in that system the whole time. He's going to has a good relationship with Mike Solari, and so the offense is going to keep running.
It doesn't hurt to have a guy, and you got to play against him, Sean. Larry Johnson, 9 games rushed for over 1,300 yards, still plays with a chip on his shoulder. What can we expect as this guy continues on in 06?
You know what? He's still working out with that same aggression and that same attitude. Whatever it was that put that chip on his shoulder, whether it be being a late first-round draft pick when he thought he should have gone higher, whether it be that he thought he got drafted to Kansas City because it was leverage against Priest Home, whatever that edge is that he has, he still has it, and he's been working that way in the offseason, and we're looking for big things from him.
Sean, your Chargers are on the clock. Who do you need here, and what do you take?
I think we'll either go at the offensive lineman or defensive back. I mean, we've made a couple of moves so far on the offensive side of the ball, picking up, a couple of players in the wide receiver position, and McCree from Carolina. So I think we'll probably go at the O-lineman or DB.
Okay, how about you?
Coach Edwards made it very clear when he came in, he doesn't want to mess with this offense, and his attention is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. So I look either defensive end or cornerback. That are 2 areas that they want to address.
Oh, on defense, spoken like a quarterback. Hey, remember October 22nd, Week 7. It could get awful nasty in Kansas City. The Chargers are on the clock with the 19th pick. This is the 2006 NFL Draft.
Talking about some of the players still on the board at this point who will present value. The wide receivers, and we knew it was a weak position this year that the wide receivers could drop a bit. Chad Jackson out of Florida playing in 2 different systems, productive the last couple of years. Santonio Holmes, a nice season for the Buckeyes, 5'10 and a half, 185-pounder, tough kid. Both these guys figure mid to late first round. And Sonoris Moss from Miami is another kid you would look at in the late first. And of course, Winston Justice. Marcus McNeil from Auburn's another kid that I didn't have as high a grade on as some people did that would be in the mix here. D'Angelo Williams, the fine running back at Memphis. Lawrence Maroney, Minnesota, still on the board as well. Joseph Adai, you look at the running back position, going to present some value at this point as well, as it always did. Running backs historically do drop down. Lendale White's going to be interesting to see how far he falls out of USC.
You know what, though? Here's San Diego. Those are the names. Here's San Diego at 9-7, and we well documented last year. Man, they're such a good team. Man, this year they're not going to have a schedule that's murderous. This year, it seemed like they were always going cross-country, playing teams after buys, and that's not an excuse. It's just a fact. Admittedly, they're going to play with Phillip Rivers, and you just heard Sean Merriman say, as good as LaDainian Tomlinson is, they're going to have to be a little more, run the ball. You can't expect to open up everything in the playbook. Now, what do you need to do? You need to block for them a little bit.
You need to play better defense.
And you need to play a little better defense. And they've been you could use help on the line, but, they've been looking for those corners for a while. There's one that's a big gamble out there who has like no track record of. Antonio Cromartie, but I have a feeling that if you're pushing, and look, San Diego gambled with Castillo in the first round last year, and they certainly dialed in with Merriman. I think they gamble with Cromartie.
Well,
This would be about a time for
and
him.
A.J. Smith, their general manager, has never been afraid to do what he thinks right. Now, Antonio Cromartie is a guy, one of the most fascinating stories in the draft, as Mel will tell you about, a guy who did not play his junior year because of a knee surgery. As a sophomore, didn't really start because they were loyal to their seniors. And yet, I heard general managers tell me and some coaches say, this might be the one guy who could cover a Terrell Owens in this league because he is big and fast and athletic.
And you won't believe what the fallback plan is. If he's just, say, an average corner, if he doesn't develop and maximize that ability at corner, the fallback is he could be a wide receiver. He came there playing that position at a high school, 6'2", 209 pounds with a 44-inch vertical jump, and his ball skills, the hands he showed in the workout were wide receiver-like. That's why people think, hey, if he doesn't develop a corner, move him to the offensive side of the ball.
And I mentioned Terrell Owens, how about covering a Randy Moss?
And Keenan McCardell is getting old out there, very old. If you got a young guy playing quarterback, Phillip Rivers, give him someone to throw the football to.
Yeah, they lost Caldwell a little bit, but they got a tight end that's okay.
Yeah, he's very good.
Although you don't want,
they got a running back
very good. Although I always say this, you don't want the tight end, and however good they are, to be the leading receiver, the best receiver on your football team. You do not want that out of the
Because that means everybody's playing tight to the line.
That's correct.
Everybody's playing tight to the line of scrimmage. A guy like Jackson can open this thing up.
Well, here are the guys. LaDainian Tomlinson, the running back, unparalleled in the league. And Antonio Gates, 1,100 yards from the tight end position with 89 catches off the basketball. What a story that is. What a story that is. And again, it's Phillip Rivers. So now, see, we're doing it the old-fashioned way. So for the Vince Youngs, who's going to sit for a year or so, and who knows what liner it'll be, and Cutler will certainly sit for a little while. Phillip Rivers sat for 2 years. So now this first draft pick of 2 years ago for San Diego will finally take shape. We know what Roethlisberger turned out like. We know what Eli is going to turn out like. Maybe this is an odd year 2 years ago that all those first-round quarterbacks up high turn out big. We don't know with Rivers. Let's see if San Diego makes the gamble, Mel. Let's go up to the commissioner and see what the Tijuana taxi drove in.
With the 19th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the San Diego Chargers select Antonio Cromartie, defensive back, Florida State.
Is he healthy and ready to go? That's my question.
Everybody said, boom, within the next couple of months, he would be football ready. They feel he was getting close, maybe 2 months away, but this kid missed all of 2005 with a knee injury he sustained back in August. So this is a kid who didn't have a lot of starts, didn't have a lot of experience, was a wide receiver and defensive back in high school, but when you watched him when he was on the field, he played in all 13 games back in 2003, then had 4 picks as a sophomore. Here at Sonoris Moss again. You see the ability. No separation there with Moss and Cromartie. Here's against West Virginia, and you see the ability here. These are unique skills for a 6'2", 210-pounder. As I said, a 44 vertical. This is against the Clemson Tigers again, making a play and showing hands. That was against Irish Curry. So here's a kid who could play wide receiver if need be down the road. But right now, I had people say, hey, if he would have been healthy, he could have been a top 3 to 5 pick in the first round. Certainly the expectation is that he could be one of the elite corners in this league where the rule changes favor the wide receivers dramatically. So there's no lockdown, shutdown corner. He may be the closest thing to that. So if you're sitting there saying, okay, 4 Seminole defensive players already selected, what happened to the Seminoles? Well, their offense had issues. Quarterback, offensive line problems. That's why they didn't play to the level of maybe this defensive talent. But his speed, his athleticism, remarkable. And you're getting him at 19, so the risk-reward, obviously, at 19 is what you're looking at.
What happened to these guys in that Orange Bowl? That was like a pinball game, wasn't it?
Well, he wasn't on the field.
That's true. Well, we know that. That's true. So, hey, look, defensive backs now. We said the run might start. Here we are. We've had 19 picks, 5 of them DBs, including 3 of the last 5 picks. And, Mel, you mentioned it. Mort, you mentioned it. Only twice before in the history of the Common Draft, i.e. since '67, has one school had 4 guys from one side of the ball drafted in the first round. Sims, Wembley, Bunkley, and Cromartie from Florida State on defense. In 04, the U, Miami, and 4 defensive players, Sean Taylor, Vilma, DJ Williams, and Vince Wilfork. In 68, USC had Ron Yeri, Mike Taylor, Mike Colero McCullough on offense. So Florida State doing that. And now next up will be Kansas City and we'll tell their story in a minute. But let's go back to NFL Live with Trey and the gang.
All right, Boomer, thanks very much. Welcome back to the NFL Live set. Trey here with Stink, Haji, and Jaws. Trust me, we're on a first-name basis. Guys, look, Antonio Cromartie's name has been coming up the last couple of weeks. Stock has been rising up the draft board, but he hadn't played football in a year. Is this a reach for San Diego to take this pick now?
Oh, absolutely, it is a reach. You got a guy coming off a serious knee injury, and he doesn't have the playing experience that you'd like to project him to the National Football League level. Certainly have a guy that was a track star, can time great, but people I've spoken to around the league that are good evaluators of the cornerback position have a problem with the guy. He lacks technique, doesn't look in the backfield, doesn't turn those hips like you see the cornerbacks turn. So I think there are clearly some concerns about the abilities of Cromartie as you project him to the NFL.
Jaws, interesting. This is a nasty word in the National Football League, and I'm about to use it. Potential. Potential is a nasty word because, you know, you start looking and evaluating players by the way they run 40s, by the way they vertical jump, by the way all the statistical things, the things you can quantify, and you don't have enough film on this kid to say, yes, I think he translates. You already heard Mel Kiper talk about, hey, if he's not a good enough quarterback, he's athletic enough to play wide receiver. Are you kidding me? You've got to, in the first round, if you're going after a corner, Merrill, you've got to make sure the kid can play. There's not enough film. There's too many unknowns. You're based on potential.
But what tape there was, and we were able to watch, there's studying him, he is a very dangerous pick for a couple of reasons. When you study him on tape, he's playing against some awful quarterbacks. We've seen a highlight package. Those highlight packages are not great corner play. The quarterbacks are literally throwing it to him. He is not making great plays on the football. When you translate to the National Football League, you're playing against outstanding quarterbacks, and that's the one thing that's hard when you translate these guys. They don't play against great wide receivers all the time. They don't play against great quarterbacks all the time. So when they make some plays in the highlight package we saw, those were actually poorly thrown footballs that won't happen at the next level.
It is the hardest position to evaluate for the draft because these guys almost always play off. You never see the press bump and run position, and you don't see them playing against quality wide receivers.
Well, clearly, though, whether or not this was the right pick, this was the issue for the San Diego Chargers. They were #1 against the run defensively last season and 28th against the pass. When people say the Chargers were the best team not to make the playoffs, that secondary might have been the reason why they've been trying to fix it for the last few years. Is Cromartie the fix for the San Diego pass defense? Let's over to Susie Calbernell with someone who may have an answer to that.
We'll go to the man himself. Antonio Cromartie joins us from Tallahassee, Florida. Antonio, we know you only had one career start, missed all of 05 with the knee injury. How did you stay in touch with your team, first of all?
How can I hear you? Say that again?
How did you stay connected with your team, having missed all of last year?
Basically, I mean, for me, I just try to stay just in shape and everything. Just basically just work hard through everything that I did throughout with my injury and everything, and just push myself through everything.
So, given having missed the 05 season, why did you decide to come out early?
Basically, the reason I came out was basically because of what happened back at home with family problems and financial problems. So by me being the man in the house, I just felt like the best thing for me was to come out and support my family.
Coaches that you've met with, what have they said to you about what you will have to do to make that transition into the NFL?
Basically, I mean, just then working on my back pedal, working on my technique a little more. That was the main thing that they was talking about, and just make sure I was wrap up and when I make my tackles.
So what are your thoughts on facing a guy like Randy Moss, who happens to be in your division now?
That's gonna be great facing up against Randy Moss. I mean, I'm just trying to come in and just work hard every single day, and when that time comes to face Randy Moss, and then we will see what happens on Sunday.
Antonio, congratulations.
Thank you.
The 2006 NFL Draft rolls on. The Kansas City Chiefs on the clock.
I'm Vince Young from the University of Texas.
10 to the 10, 5, touchdown Texas.
You're watching the 2006 NFL Draft on ESPN.
I'm Vince Young in this game, I'm so fresh. And every yard that I gain, extra minute of fame, man.
Welcome back to the 2006 NFL Draft, presented by Coors Light.
Welcome back to New York, everybody. The Kansas City Chiefs, the first pick with Herm Edwards as their head coach. This, I think, you'll find very interesting.
With the 20th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Tamba Hali, defensive end from Penn State.
So a young man, and you're going to hear his story in a moment. Not like most stories you're going to hear about folks in the NFL draft. But first, Mel, let's plug him in as part of Joe Paterno's defense for Penn State.
Well, if you need corners, well, the best place to get a situational defense that works is to get after the quarterback, and has some of those problems in the secondary, maybe doesn't show up quite as much. And this kid can attack off the edge. Talking about leverage, staying low, maximizing his strength. He plays better and stronger than he tests. He only did 17 reps at a workout, only ran 4.86. That concerns some people, but when you watched him play, there he is against Brody Croyle, getting after Croyle, and I think when you watched him perform on the field, this kid was dominant, intense kid, great motor, and production. That's all he was about at Penn State. Led the Big Ten this past year with 11 sacks, and 17 of his 65 tackles were behind the line of scrimmage. So had he had a better workout, he could have been certainly in the top 10 to 15. I thought he'd go between 25 and 40 and be a steal for somebody. So he kind of got back by Kansas City taking him here. He gets back to where he was originally projected. So that's a great story for this kid to be able to kind of revert back to the form in terms of the workout, not really hurting him, to get back into the middle of the first round and go to a team that needs his pass rush ability, Boone.
Well, the fact that the Nittany Lions and Joe Paterno have a defensive player that's gone in the first round is not necessarily news, but Susie Kalber, the fact that Tamba Hali we're even discussing today, that is news.
Well, Chris, Giants GM Ernie Accorsi has been doing this for a very long time. He's met a lot of players, and he said that regarding Tamba Hali's interview at the Combine, it was one of the most impressive things he's ever experienced. It wasn't just about the story, it was the way he told it. He was thoughtful, intellectual, it was moving. And the room was silent as he told it. Tom Rinaldi tells that story now.
All the way from Africa to all America. For Tamba Hali, football is about a journey, and about a family, and about a country.
Being in Liberia and being in Africa, you think in the United States, I mean, they have everything. It's like coming to heaven.
As a child growing up amidst the war and chaos of his native Liberia, Hali has already seen hell.
All I knew was the Civil War. I thought about becoming a soldier too. I mean, trying to, get a gun too and go to war as well. Because, I mean, everybody around you was just guns. Guns was everywhere.
In 1986, Tamba's father, Henry Hali, a teacher, permanently moved to America to help his children escape from war and fear.
I decided to come to this country because I felt that by being here, I can better help my kids. If I live in that country and there's a war, I couldn't help them.
After settling in New Jersey, Henry sent for Tamba and 3 of his siblings in 1994. Tamba was 10 years old.
When I got here, I was put in the 5th grade because of my age, and and I didn't even know how to read and write.
But part of his heart, the heart of his family, remains in Africa. His mother, Rachel, still lives in Liberia. His father unable to bring her over because they're unmarried. Tamba hasn't seen his mother in 12 years.
Sometimes just being away from her for so long is just like, how am I gonna ever feel when I see her again? Because she was everything in my life, and everything I wanted in my life, and nobody can change that. She was walking with 3 other friends in the city. The 3 other people that she was walking with got sprayed and they all died. And she got shot in the knee. By God's grace, she's still alive. I'm just glad she's still living. And she's still out there, and I'm still praying for her.
First team All-America, but not an American citizen yet. A permanent resident of the United States, Hali can now petition to bring his mother here. His ability to provide financially for her is a key part of the process. And the reason why football, more than ever, is about a journey and a country and a family.
When I get on the field, I just, use that as a motivational factor for me to be able to play well, and maybe that'll open doors for my mom to be able to come to the States.
Well, now, certainly more than ever, Tamba Hali will have the means to bring his mother, Rachel, here to this country. And Chris, there seems to be a connection here as well with the Chiefs. Remember, they drafted Christian Okoye in 1987.
Yeah, and that was a while back, and certainly that was a heartening story, and so is that, as told by Tom Rinaldi. Susie, thank you. Let's bring in now the new head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs in our Coors Light video conferencing, and that would be Herm Edwards. And Herm, I know how excited you are about him as a football player, but when you first sat down with Tamba, can you describe the feeling when he told the story for you and you got to know him as a human being, not a football player?
Well, obviously, his passion, what he felt he needed to do for his family. I think a young man, this is a young guy that has his priorities in life correct. And I think that's what you like about the guy when you first meet him. Not only is he a passionate football player, but I think he has great direction. He knows where he has great focus. He brings intensity every time he walks onto the football field.
Do you think, yes, he's played at Penn State and he's been in this country for a while, but he's only scratched the surface of what he can do? I mean, certainly, youth football was not the way everybody else have played it who's in this draft.
The Big Ten and sacks. You make a great point, Chris. I think the guy is just scratching the surface. I mean, he's just learning how to play, and the thing that he plays that you can't underestimate is he plays with passion and heart. He has great heart for this game of football, and when you look at a player like that, that's the type of player that you want on your defense. You want guys that are relentless, that play hard, that practice hard, that enjoy the game of football, and this guy does that.
The Chiefs as a whole, Herm, part of the job in taking over with the new team is understanding what they have and what that division is, since you're in another division with the Jets. What has to happen for the Chiefs now to take the quantum leap and get in to be a real Super Bowl contender?
Well, I think obviously we have to play better defense, more consistent on defense, and I think this is one of the guys that's going to be able to help us do that. And I think our staff is excited about having him. He's excited about being here, and we have an excellent pick here.
Well, we appreciate it, Herm, and that's quite a story in the first round. We'll tell the bookbinder story here later on in the draft, okay?
That'll be a good one to tell, Boomer. Talk to you later. Tell the guys I said hi.
I will. All right, Herm Edwards, coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. Thanks for joining us. New England's on the clock, and of course the boos you hear are from the Jet fans that feel that Herm, might have left quickly, but he's with the Chiefs. Jets are rolling. We'll be back.
I'm Matt Weiner with this SportsCenter 30 at 30 update. Well, he reminds some of New Orleans native Marshall Faulk, and now Reggie Bush is headed to New Orleans. Saints keep him and take him number 2. Vince Young went immediately afterward. He'll have a chance to back up good friend Steve McNair. The other two quarterbacks fell a bit. Matt Leinart all the way to 10th, playing that new stadium in Arizona. Jay Cutler with the next pick. The Broncos traded up to 11th. And for NASCAR, Elliott Sadler won the pole for tomorrow's Aaron's 499 at Talladega. Next, SportsCenter at 11 Eastern, and up-to-the-minute draft news alerts from mobile ESPN. Back to New York with the Patriots on the clock.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. That's Chad Jackson. Wide receivers haven't gone. He's waiting for his name to be called. Antonio Holmes has been a big day defense, Ohio State, but he's waiting as well. Will this be a chance for wide receivers to go in the draft, as the New England Patriots are the team on the clock right now? The New England Patriots a year removed. The New England Patriots are a team that, well, we can discuss them, but a question for them will be, how much does Corey Dillon have left?
That's a big, huge question.
And so, therefore,
with the
they have
21st choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select Lawrence Maroney, running back, University of Minnesota.
Well, other than Reggie Bush, here goes your first running back. I believe that's the first time Bill Belichick has taken a running back. Well, Tommy Vardell was there. It's a long time ago, okay? Here's my point. So, Lawrence Boney Maroney from Minnesota to the New England Patriots, who still have Dillon, and they hope that he will have a big year. But, Mel,
You're going to Corey Dillon, though, boom, a lot of wear and tear. He's had a lot of carries during his career. He averaged 3.5 a carry last year, so that's the second lowest. Probably the second time he averaged below 4 yards a carry. Maroney, when you watched him play at Minnesota, I thought it'd be an ideal running back for the teams like the Indianapolis Colts, the Denver Broncos. That style to run behind. Esslinger at center, heck of a player. Mark Setterstrom's been there at guard. Both those kids were 4-year starters for the Golden Gophers. So here's a one-cut runner who has some explosiveness, decent hands, blocking I think could improve. We can say that about all the running backs. I think when you look at Maroney, the productivity year in, year out with the Golden Gophers. Granted, the line was impressive, but this is a kid I thought would have looked great in an Indianapolis Colt uniform. There was projections that he could last that far. New England passed on Steven Jackson a few years ago, got Corey Dillon. Now Corey Dillon's starting to wear down a bit. They have now a young kid to bring into the mix.
Well, did you think that he was the second best running back in the draft?
Well, D'Angelo Williams from Memphis was. And I got Maroney next, then Lendale White, then Brian Calhoun from Wisconsin. So they were all after Reggie Bush. Just like you talked about the quarterbacks, there was a lot of mixed opinion. But D'Angelo Williams is a very good back, still on the board. You talk about Maroney, a better line to run behind than Williams did at Memphis.
Let's say something, too. No one's saying Corey Dillon is not going to have any fuel left in the tank. It's just not forever. He's been such a workhorse for a long time, and off of 1 year, fell off some. But if Maroney has some carries and Dillon springs back, look, their offense, Brady has as good a year as he's had. Here's what Corey, last year for 733 yards rushing, that's the kind of running they had when they won the Super Bowl in 01. The first of the 3 Super Bowl teams in the 4-year span. But this is a team that, look, could they line up and play today? Yeah. They lost Vinatieri, so no BVBs, but they got BB. They got Coach Belichick and they got Tom Brady. They got a prolific offense. And, they certainly should be a contender again. They have the most picks of anybody with 11 picks, fellas.
And this is a big back now. You talk about D'Angelo Williams. I'm talking about this is a big guy and playing in New England, type of weather there. You can hand the ball off to this guy and let him move the pile.
And they've invested draft picks in Nick Kazar and Logan Mankins the last couple of years. Those guys are good run blocking guys. And this team, still almost got to the Super Bowl last year.
Yes, right.
So this is a good pick.
And Rodney Harrison his rehab is going along as hoped, not ahead of schedule, not behind schedule. They hope to have Rodney Harrison back when the season opens up. I remember his knee injury last year. That nobody will rehab it harder than their strong safety, Rodney Harrison. So the 49ers now on the clock. They're one of 2 teams that has a pair of first-round picks. Let's go out to San Francisco and Steve Young. And Steve, hey, look, every pick could be a starter with this team, yeah?
Well, no question. In fact, Mike Nolan mentioned to me 15 minutes ago, look, I need starters. I moved up to the 22nd pick because I wanted a starter. I didn't want somebody to fill out the roster. So they've gone offense. Alex Smith last year, #1. This year, with the tight end, Vernon Davis. 22nd pick is definitely defense. You got to figure that Julian Peterson has departed. They're going to look for a pass rushing, someone to put an impact, or a corner. Somebody's going to make an impact on that defense. So you look at the corners or defensive ends, those guys that can put pressure on the quarterback. I think that's where the 49ers will go.
Steve, you're sitting out there with the Niners, and look, they won 4 games last year. They won the last couple, so they moved up from first pick in the draft somewhat. Can they, with a good draft, admittedly with young kids, do you see at least things moving in the right direction year 2 under Coach Nolan?
Well, there's no question that Coach has he has a plan, and you can see around the locker room just being here that he's reminding the guys of that plan every day. He's very focused and wants the guys to be dedicated. So, a lot of the problems in football come from the fact that the locker room's broken apart and people aren't working together. The collective will of the group has broken down, and I think he's put that back together. There's a collective will in the locker room. We're going to change this. So now he's got that going in the right direction. Now he needs bodies, he needs starters, he needs players, and that's why this draft's so important for him.
I want to come back to you shortly here and talk about year 2 of Alex Smith, the #1 pick a year ago. Maybe we can get back to you in a moment. But the Niners have made their choice. Let's go up to the commissioner and see. Second first-round pick, San Francisco. Vernon Davis, the tight end, was picked 6th overall by the 49ers.
With the 22nd choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the San Francisco 49ers select Manny Lawson, defensive end, North Carolina State.
And a lot of folks, Mel, had him going a little earlier than this.
He got hot. When he and Antonio Cromartie were the two hot guys that had moved up dramatically over the last, say, 3, 4 to 5 weeks. And you look at Manny Lawson, certainly benefited from being on a line with a kid like Mario Williams. Also, John McCargo, defensive tackle, could be a 2nd or 3rd round pick. When you look at Lawson, look at a kid who has an intensity level because he did the job on special teams. Anytime you put your mind to it and you become a special teams dynamic performer, blocking punts and really getting after it, that tells you this kid does have a lot of ability. Was a little inconsistent, had some big games, but also had some off games, just like his teammate Mario Williams. But he's got the long arms, the great wingspan, and he runs, if you can believe it, at 6'5 1/4, 240 pounds, a 4'4", 340, and had a 40-inch vertical jump. You look at a kid who was productive. You talk about his tackles and his sacks were comparable to Mario Williams. So in terms of production, they were very similar. You look at this kid, I thought Denver would be looking at this kid. I thought Dallas could be in the 3-4 situation. They picked Bobby Carpenter instead. You look at this pick here for a team like San Francisco. Julian Peterson-Mort, gone. Look at Andre Carter, gone in free agency. They're a 3-4 team with Mike Nolan and no outside linebackers. Now they have one.
No, they invested so much in Julian Peterson, and they lost him to the Seattle Seahawks in free agency. They had to get this guy.
This was one of my favorite players in the draft. And the biggest compliment that I could give to him is every time you turned on video to watch Mario Williams, you couldn't help but notice that Manny Lawson was the guy who was hustling and making plays. And he's an incredible athlete. I mean, did you see that 40? Did you see this guy?
So you don't like 40 times. You don't like the combine. Don't tell me how Don't tell me how high that is.
40. I did see the 40. This is the guy chasing the quarterback. I like watching game film. I pick that over everything. But when I'm not stop watching game film, I like watching.
When Mario Williams was big, you said, "Don't tell me about his 40 time or his vertical jump." And now
we were measuring against Reggie Bush. We were measuring against Reggie Bush. Now we're just measuring this boy here on what we're seeing. Don't get crazy with him, Mort.
All right, let's before we go back to San Francisco, we'll be busy here, but let's go back out to San Francisco. Steve, I want to bring you back in here. And look, year 2, Alex Smith, the learning curve obviously is huge. What's happened since the last time we saw him in the regular season? Do you think he has a chance, especially with a young tight end, to make significant strides this season?
Well, I mean, Alex had a season of all seasons last year when in and out of the lineup, he had trouble holding on to the football because the football in the NFL is very slick at times, depending on where you're playing. There's all kinds of things that people don't even realize that a quarterback's going through, and it seems like Alex saw them all. The interceptions, the horrible games, you know, and so I guess the good news is that he's been through it. I mean, he's learned through it. He feels like he's got a good thing going. So he's got Vernon Davis. He's got some weapons. They've addressed the offensive line. They've re-signed Jonas Jennings. They're making all the efforts to put him in a good spot. Now he needs to show the collective will of the team rub off on him, that he has the will to go make this team a better team in the red zone on game day, make the big plays, create the space for himself that comes from that #1 pick. I think this is the year where he earns the right to show why he was picked #1, and I think he's gone through enough now that he might be ready to do that.
Well, Steve, I noticed one thing. You're not sitting in front of your own locker, but I see Bryant Young's jersey over your shoulder. So you're not coming back, are you?
No, I'm not coming back, right? But you know what? Bryant Young just walked by. He's working out. I mean, the guy is an amazing athlete, so he's another guy that'll be key for the 49ers in a leadership role. But no, I told the coach upstairs I got a couple of games in me left, but they're both in August.
Yeah, you play with us for another season. Thank you, Steve. We'll see you a little bit later. Okay. That young jersey looks, it's just a number change.
It looks funny back there, Boom, but I'm talking about when you talk about Alex Smith and Norm Turner, new offensive coordinator in San Francisco, he will take this young guy and make him the great pro that we all think he can become, because he'll allow him to do only what he does best. He'll take a Vernon Davis and allow Vernon Davis to become his best friend, dumping that football off, and watch that offense start taking off in San Francisco.
Well, a big day, and first time 2 NC State players have gone in the first round. Maybe basketball has happened, but not football. So we have Williams and Lawson, Tampa Bay on the clock, and we return.
I am Mario Williams.
Mario Williams in pursuit, hit him.
You're watching NFL Draft on ESPN.
ESPN's coverage of the NFL Draft is brought to you by Dockers San Francisco and United. It's time to fly.
Welcome back to New York. Well, we're in one. You saw the Statue of Liberty, just a symbol of freedom and a symbol of New York. And here we're on Radio City Music Hall, which is it's just exciting for all of us. First time the draft has been here. This is the 71st year of the draft. Radio City Music Hall been hosting things since 1932. Well, Tampa Bay is on the clock. Sal Paolantonio is over with the Jets now, but Sal has some news of the Buccaneers, who have about 5.5 minutes left. Sal?
Well, Boom, John Gruden has to be really excited that Winston Justice, the offensive tackle from USC, has fallen this far. Now, the Bucs did have the same 5 starters on the offensive line for all 16 games this year. Only one of 3 teams that had that situation, but they do lack depth, and they may lose Kenyatta Walker to free agency next year. Now, obviously, they've done their due diligence on some of the off-the-field problems with Justice. They've talked to Lane Kiffin, who's Monty Kiffin's son. Monty, of course, is the longtime defensive coordinator of the Bucs. Lane Kiffin is the offensive coordinator for USC. They've talked to him. They brought Winston Justice in, and they talked to him about some of the off-the-field problems. Justice was arrested, of course, and sentenced to probation after pleading no contest to a misdemeanor count of solicitation of prostitution, July 2003. And, of course, he was also charged with 3 misdemeanor counts of exhibiting a replica firearm. In March of 2004, the court sentenced him to 60 days of electronic monitoring as well as 3 years probation, and the school student affairs department suspended him for 2 semesters as a result. Now, the Bucs have done their homework on this. This is the reason why Justice has dropped. Maybe they're overlooking it. Maybe they've talked to him about it, and we'll see whether they're willing to take Winston Justice. If not, they could go defense here, Boomer.
Well, Sal certainly is a litany right there, and you don't know how much ties into guys moving up, moving down, et cetera, in the draft. Certainly Winston Justice, after the big tackle to Shaw Ferguson, was thought to be the next tackle. But so has he, because of this, has he dropped a lot? I don't know that yet, Mel.
Chris, his stock had dropped early in the year because he struggled. He had sat out all of 2004 with those off-the-field issues, then came back and was a little rusty. And he really admits that, or it only took some time, but late this season, he feels he was playing the best football of his entire career. Had a great work. He's strong. He's very athletic. Now you watch him, and you're talking about a kid playing right tackle, but protecting the blind side of Matt Leinart, the left-handed quarterback. So he showed that in the NFL, he could move to left tackle. And if you're talking Buccaneers at left tackle, Anthony Davis had some problems. He had some issues. Wasn't necessarily starting material at a high level. He could come in right away as a rookie and at least challenge for a starting job.
And if this is Winston Justice, and we don't know that it is yet, it makes a lot of sense because another left-handed quarterback plays for the Buccaneers.
Right.
Chris Sims. And I know that Sims is probably a pretty happy guy today because he was looking at the New Orleans Saints possibly getting what? Mario Williams in a division that already has Julius Peppers and that Carolina defensive front, and Atlanta getting John Abraham to go with Patrick Kearney and Rod Coleman. So Sims, if he doesn't get a Mario Williams lining up across him and yet gets a Winston Justice to help block, it certainly would make sense if that's the pick. But clearly, first-round theme here, character does matter. Absolutely. You look at these first 22 picks, and only one had a character flaw. For the most part, all these guys are pretty clean. So Winston Justice, obviously, the character issues did cost him, I think.
And you mentioned Chris Sims. This is year one, the first full year here where Chris Sims is going to take the helm of the Tampa Bay Bucs. So, you know, they won the division last year. It's their first winning season since John Gruden won the Super Bowl in his first year with Tampa Bay in 2002. The Bucs return as
and it's also a draft in which you would think that Tampa Bay, when you have a young quarterback like this, you are looking to get him, whether it's Winston Justice, whether it's a wide receiver. I think it's on the offensive side of the ball. You are looking to lighten the load for one Chris Sims and make his job easier at playing quarterback.
How do we feel the Bucs? Look, that is a division that was in flux. Atlanta kind of the bottom, fell out a little bit. Carolina, who ended up being the heavy in the division, but Tampa won the division. How do we see that division next year with the Saints obviously looking up?
Well, you know, it's funny. The Bucs are the defending champions, but I think a lot of people would say, well, I'll take the Carolina Panthers.
Right.
It's because
I will.
You'll take the Carolina Panthers. But, I know the Falcons. This is a big year for them. It's a reason, you know, they got Michael Vick, but they trade for John Abraham. You know, Rich McKay traded for Simeon Rice with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Right.
Then he brings in a guy like Abraham. So this division only gets better. Now Reggie Bush comes into it with the Saints. And so it's really, I think,
went and got the opposite
NFC
receiver.
East, the AFC West, the NFC South, those are the elite divisions. And, of course, the Steelers and Bengals, Ravens pretty good.
I was going to say that Carolina went and got that opposite receiver for Steve Smith to make sure that he doesn't get the kind of attention that he got last year. And, you know, no matter how you feel about him, they got an outstanding possession guy opposite him.
The Bucs, remember, there were 3 running backs taken in the first 5 last year. The Bucs struck gold, at least in year 1. Cadillac Wade.
They really did. Cadillac had a heck of a year. He was the 3rd running back taken out of that group. But Michael Clayton, the wide receiver, had that great rookie year, 80 catches, dropped only 32 receptions in his 2nd year, 11.6 yard average. That's not going to get it done. So Michael Clayton needs to have a bounce back season and kind of revert back to that rookie form.
You know what's interesting? I mean, we've sat here. Usually teams take all 15 minutes. Where's the phone call? Tampa Bay milking it. But most of the teams have made quick picks, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's, I don't know if Bruce Allen and John Gruden coordinated their Tommy Bahama shirts today at draft day, but I'm sure they're coordinated on this draft pick. Let's pick is in. Maybe it's in. See, they're even using clock with the commissioner. It's the last few picks the commissioner's ever going to announce, you know. No, after he took over as commissioner during the season.
He hopes.
Well, he hopes, that's true. But that's the plan. It's a long time till next year's draft. Let's say that much.
With the 23rd choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Davin Joseph, guard from the University of Oklahoma.
Well, it's offensive line.
Whatever help we could get Chris Sims. I didn't know whether it be an offensive lineman or wide receiver.
I thought he'd be an early 2nd round pick. Some people thought he could maybe be in the late 1st round. Remember, he played left tackle at Oklahoma this past season. Not going to play that spot in the NFL. He's going to be a guard. He's got long arms, smart kid, and a real good athlete. There's no question about that. But as a guard in the NFL, he has a chance to be pretty doggone good, especially for a team that their guards did not play well. Tampa Bay had an issue at tackle. They also had an issue at offensive guard. So they may reach a little bit, but there were a number of teams that thought he could go anywhere between 28 and 40. Here we are at pick 23, but the kid has talent. There's no question. Early in his career, Oklahoma, everybody close to that football program were raving about Davin Joseph. And, of course, last year, Jamal Brown went in the 1st round. He was with the Saints doing a nice job. And here Davin Joseph comes in, a left tackle, but he did play guard at Oklahoma, moved to left tackle out of necessity, struggled at that spot, but now he'll transition easily back inside into a guard spot.
You know what's amazing? As we move forward here in the draft, it is now, let's see, 4. So we've been on the air for 4 hours, and the Bengals haven't picked yet. That's how much of a difference there was last year over the previous 15 years of the Bengals. The Bengals finally on the clock coming up.
That's funny.
This is the draft.
This is the draft. The 2006. The 2006 NFL draft on ESPN.
Welcome back to the 2006 NFL Draft. The Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock. Sean Salisbury here with quarterback Trent Green. Trent, in 1999, you blew out your major knee injury. Right. Carson Palmer, quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. You did yours in the preseason in 99. Right. Carson Palmer does his in the playoffs last year. How realistic is it for us to expect Palmer to be ready by the season start?
You know, it's not impossible, but it's going to be really hard for him to do it because when you look at the number of injuries that happened to that knee, it wasn't just a straight ACL or a straight MCL tear. He did multiple tears to his knee, not only ligaments, some cartilage, tendons, those kinds of things. A full-blown knee surgery had to be reconstructed. So to think that he's going to be back in a 10-month period to be ready to go is hard-pressed to think so.
Is it tougher mentally or physically during the rehab?
I think the hard part for me was mentally. Because every day as you're making that drive in, you're saying to yourself, you know, what's the long-term goal of this? You know, your first goal is to get some range of motion. Then you want to get some strength. Then you're just gradually going through I want to get on the field. Then, you know, it's just little steps. And mentally, just the day after day grind of it takes its toll.
Well, here's Carson Palmer, who's leading the Cincinnati Bengals team, a playoff team. Yeah. Carson Palmer goes down. Now, as far as coming back, and when you think about the realistic expectations, but when do you know? Because everybody a coach wants to get you back in there and get you on the field and you feel pressure. When do you know it's time to come back and you're confident enough to get back on the field?
You know what, it took me probably about 8 to 10 months that I felt confident going out and getting on the field. It probably took that first game of taking a hit to realize, hey, it's okay, I can take a hit on that knee again. And then for me, I actually had to have another surgery after that first season. So this is something that Carson's got to be able to accept mentally, is that this thing may not be over this year. He may just be rehabbing himself to get ready for this campaign, get through it, and then afterwards he may need another cleanup just to get it back to the function that he wants it to.
Now, you and Carson Palmer, both right-handed quarterbacks. Right. As you step back and plant your right foot, it was your lead leg that you hurt in '99 and that Palmer hurt. What's the difference for a quarterback, a right-handed thrower?
You know what? When I saw that happen in the playoff game, that was one of the first things I said to my wife. I said, you know what? He got hit on the front leg, he got hit on the lead leg, and the ability to come back from that, I think, is quicker than if it was your plant leg. In your plant leg, that's where all your power comes from. Your lead leg, it's not as important. Obviously, your balance is important, but your lead leg is not as important as your plant leg.
Well, Susie Colbert, if it turns out just as well for Carson Palmer as it did for Trent Green, Cincinnati Bengals will be in pretty good shape. Suze, back to you.
Well, Sean, the 2006 NFL Draft was expected to be drama-filled, and we could say that the intrigue kicked in last night. That's when the Houston Texans signed defensive end Mario Williams to become the #1 pick in the draft. First time an ACC player is taken #1 overall. FSU has dominated this draft. 4 FSU defensive players in the top 23. Ernie Sims, Cameron Wimbley, Broderick Bunkley, Antonio Cromartie. No wide receivers taken. The last time no wide receivers taken in the first round was 1990. And another note in terms of Miami Hurricanes, first time since 1996 that a Miami Hurricane wasn't taken in the top 15. Chris?
Thank you, Susie. I want to repeat that for Mike. First time since 1996 the Miami Hurricane has been picked. Top 15.
Good recruiting.
We'll get it right.
In the same year where Brown may have a player selected. Cardigan. The turn of the tide. At any rate, segueing right to the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengals and Marvin Lewis certainly turned the tide of 15 years of not great football. Let's just put it that way. And, of course, it all started when Marvin went in there as coach and his draft pick, Carson Palmer. Yeah, you're going to sit and watch John Kitna play, but his first pick ever up top, Carson Palmer, and then you see what they've done in the draft. And Pollock certainly is an interesting player. And Thurman, Tommy, you liked him from the get-go. I know you saw them in the summer last year in August. But the main question, let's go back to Cincinnati. Carson Palmer, the knee injury, which we saw, what in the preseason, the guys talked about for what in the regular season, in the playoffs. So do they think he's going to be ready week 1?
Well, I think they've gotten insurance now in Anthony Wright and Doug Johnson. But I'm just saying the thing about Carson Palmer, I don't know if they necessarily expect Carson to be ready to play at the beginning of the year. Right now, word is he is ahead of schedule, but you hear that a lot. But the combination, I want to talk about what Carson does for this football team because he has to be fully recovered, I think, by the time you put him back on the field. The combination of accuracy and arm strength is unparalleled to my way of thinking in football today. And that's what makes this football team when he's healthy.
And let me tell you something, Tom, because I suffered a knee injury like that. Not all of my ligaments, but I'm telling you, it's more in your head than anything. If he had suffered that injury at the beginning of the season, and we would be expecting him back at the beginning of the following season, that would even be tough. Him suffering that injury in the playoffs and talking about him being ready for the start of the season is almost impossible.
Well, and the one criticism I've heard of Marvin, the first time I've heard Marvin Lewis criticized is the fact that, okay, yes, Anthony Wright has some experience as a backup, but you've got a playoff team. You've got a division championship team. They've won the division that the Pittsburgh Steelers were in. And yet, is Anthony Wright the guy who can take you there until Carson Palmer is ready? Because we don't know when Carson Palmer is going to be. Even though we hear good things, we know it was a clean tear of the ACL and what have you. But the bottom line is that's a big question mark right now. If he's not ready, can Anthony Wright do the job?
But he has some good receivers now. He has some good receivers.
Well, we know that.
The ball too now. If anything goes on, throw it up and those guys can go get it.
Well, they know where they need to improve, and that defense.
Marvin Lewis has yet to make a mistake. Yeah, that's what we know.
They need to improve on defense. The pick is in. It'd probably be that side of the ball. Let's see. The new Cincinnati Bengals.
With the 24th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select Jonathan Joseph, defensive back, University of South Carolina.
Now, their DBs at the corners last year, Torrey James and Delta O'Neal, a lot of picks. Safety not the same, and of course here's the crowd because the Giants are up. Now on Joseph, look, they could use help back there.
Well, a neat area, certainly, Boom. When you look at a kid who had a good year overall, now there were some times where you wonder, would this kid need another year at South Carolina? You thought, yeah, going back would really allow him to elevate and become a better performer overall. But he has skills. There's no question about it. As a cornerback, all the natural ability you need. Remember, he came over from the JUCO ranks, had the injury in 2004, so he only got one season in the SEC to showcase his talent, and he's got a ton of it. Now, I think when you look at a Jonathan Joseph, I think you're going to have to really develop him, coach him up. You see the speed there, there's no question. His recovery ability is as good as any cornerback in this draft, but still a little raw, and I thought another season would have really benefited this kid and allowed him to come in and transition a little more effectively to the pro level.
But it does make sense to go with the DB. As Boomer noted, you got a lot of interceptions there with Torrey James and Delta O'Neal. That means they have good hands. They are not great cover guys. And so you get Meduhi Williams back from injury in the secondary. You bring this kid in alert, Torrey James in his 30s right now in terms of age. So this fit makes a lot of sense.
Well, we said the run would start on defensive backs, and it's continued here with the pick of Joseph by the Bengals. 6 defensive backs chosen thus far in the draft. And guess who's up next? The New York Football Giants. Let's see, no Miami player taken, no wide receiver taken. Mike, what up? We'll be back.
The New York Football Giants are on the clock. 25th overall selection of the first round. Tiki Barber, Jeremy Shockey. Will they be looking to add another weapon to the explosive ones they already have on offense? Santonio Holmes, well, he's not Thurman Thomas asleep in the second round in 1988, but he is getting a little tired of waiting around. Is he the best wide receiver still on the board? Waiting and waiting and waiting. May we suggest some caffeine just to keep him up and running for when he eventually gets selected? And will it be with the New York Giants in the first round with the 25th overall selection? We've all been there.
If they had a camera on us, they'd probably get the same shots.
There. Listen, guys, this is somewhat unusual. Welcome back to the NFL Live set, by the way. Trey Wingo here with Stink, Haji, and Jaws. We have not had a wide receiver taken in the first 20 picks. That hadn't happened since 1990 when none were taken in the first round. Here's a look at the best wide receivers still on the board, and that would be the best wide receivers because nobody has been taken yet. You see Santonio Holmes, Chad Jackson, Sonoris Moss, Maurice Stovall, and Greg Jennings. Okay, of these guys, which ones do you like the best? Jaws, let's start with you.
The best receiver and most complete receiver is Santonio Holmes. He has a good change of direction. You got to love that as a wide receiver. He gets a good clean release off the ball with the stutter step. What I like is that in and out of breaks with quickness, the hands, and will catch the football in contested areas. And he comes back to the football, which quarterbacks always love.
Well, Trey, who do you like?
Trey, I would take Chad Jackson out of Florida because of his elite speed, the ability to go vertical, catch the ball too. Oftentimes you have a lot of speed at wide receiver. They don't have great hands. Chad Jackson shows that he has great hands, but he can give that element to your offense that a lot of offenses lack, the speed to go over the top.
All right, then there is Stink. Who do you like? Bloodline's good for this one player, Sonoris Moss.
Well, Sonoris Moss is a kid to me who's got explosive 10, 12, 15-yard speed. Will catch the ball, also help you out in the return game. Here's a kid out of the slot that can catch the smoke screen, make things happen, put a defense on their heels. I love his explosiveness, his quickness, out of breaks, into breaks. This is a kid to me, when you look at that, at the slot position for the New York Giants, makes a lot of sense.
All right, just so people understand how different this year is from the last 2 first rounds. We had 13 wide receivers taken in the first round the last 2 years. We still have none taken this year. Why is that?
Well, here's what I think. After studying the tape, to be a #1 wide receiver in the NFL, you've got to be able to handle coverage that rolls to you. You've got to be a dominant guy, handle all the double teams that you're going to handle. And I don't think any of these guys warrant that. I don't think there's a #1 guy that's going to say, he will dominate for us. He will be able to take
I'm going to disagree with it. It is Santonio Holmes. I've looked at him. I've watched him. He can beat the double team. He does a great job of coming back. Yes, he gets off the press.
But those guys.
Yes, he does. He projects very well to pro level.
All three of those guys, in my opinion, are number 2 receivers or slot receivers. That's where I think they line up.
All right, well, then the interesting question here, with the Giants on the clock, are they looking for a wide receiver? And which one of these 3 do you think projects best for the Giants?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt. I know who he's going to take. He's going to take Chad Jackson. But I know who you're going to take. You got to take it to be Santonio Holmes to complement the Plexico Burris. Burris is the guy that can stretch the field. The guy that runs the inside routes, will catch the ball in traffic, is Santonio Holmes. He is the most complete wide receiver of the bunch. Whatever team is smart enough to get him will get a quality wide receiver.
The most electric guy out of the slot, there is no question, is Sonoris Moss. That's the kid that's electric. I know you like the speed, though.
Well, Sonoris is limited in what he can do. Santonio, you talking about getting in and out of breaks. I thought that's the area that he lacked doing that, and in press coverage he struggled at.
You guys watch this
Jackson. I've watched every ball that was thrown. I've watched every ball that was thrown to him. Interpretation, but you know, Jackson is the faster guy.
This is the beauty of the NFL draft. Everybody has an opinion, and nobody's wrong. 5 years from now, you can be wrong. Santonio Holmes, oh, keep smiling, baby. It's coming. Trust me. Eventually, it's coming, Santonio. We feel you. We'll be here with you until your pick. Chad Jackson still smiling, still styling with the hat. He's got his candy bar. He's got his football. He's ready for someone to pick this man. We'll see if it happens soon.
Back here in New York for the NFL draft, and with about 3 minutes to go. Well, the Jet fans certainly made the early noise, and they're going to have a ton of pick. The Jets will pick again here in the first round. But the Giants, who won the NFC East last year off a 6-10 season, they won the NFC East. This is a team that was rolling. This is a team that, of course, picked the worst time to play their worst game, and that was the opening round against Carolina at home. But the Giants were 11-5 under Eli Manning in year 2 of Eli Manning, and so Tiki Barber had a year of, almost unparalleled, the 2,000-yard combined season. And this past week, the Giants won they were the suitors that won the rights to LeVar Arrington. They signed who was once, there's the trade. The Giants, okay. All right, well, like we said, the Steelers are on the clock. And they're going to come up for some offense here. I know that. What? They're going to come up for offense. Well, how about a big Randall L? Well, they need to replace Randall L, and they need to replace Jerome Bettis. In what order they want to do it. That's correct. Randall L is a unique player who also was a return man in addition to a guy who could throw, in addition to being their second receiver. They might just jump. Well, let's go to the commissioner on the running back here. The Steelers on the clock. Let's see. Although there's no receiver picked.
Oh, here, this could be one.
Santonio Holmes is probably what this is going to be. That'd be my guess.
With the 25th pick in the 2006 NFL Draft, just acquired by trade from the Giants, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Santonio Holmes, wide receiver from Ohio State.
We moved quickly on that, didn't we? In a good move. This is the best pure route runner in this draft. When we talk about guys running routes, as I've studied these guys, this guy can run routes, he runs with the ball. When he gets the ball in his hand, out of all the receivers, best route runner. That's who Pittsburgh drafted.
18.2 yards a catch, Michael. That'll get your attention. And Troy Smith's development at quarterback really, I think, helped Santonio Holmes. Certainly had the kind of year. He's got kickoff return experience as well. But here's a kid, 5'10 and a half, about 189 pounds. You watch him here. This against the Texas Longhorns. And Cedric Griffin could be a second-round draft choice. Making a catch. Griffin had coverage. Didn't have the ball skills to make the play there. And I think you look at him here, the ability after the catch. And he's tough. He can go inside, make difficult receptions in traffic, which is what impressed me. And here it is against a situation, talk about the bowl game against Notre Dame, making another big play, and the ability, I think, to stretch it and as well help out in the return game. And you lose Antoine Randall L. I thought Sonoris Moss would make sense. Here's Santonio Holmes, though. A lot of people have argued he's the best receiver. I rated it Chad Jackson, Holmes, then Moss. But I think the fact that this kid had such a great year with Troy Smith at quarterback for the Buckeyes, you would have projected him probably to Denver, middle of the first. You could have thought about the later first. So he goes about where the wide receivers were projected to go.
Well, here's some names that you might know where Santonio Holmes fit in. Career touchdown receptions, Ohio State. Admittedly, Ohio State not through the years your classic throwing team, but certainly in recent years with David Boston, and all he did was catch touchdowns. Chris Carter, more than Joey Galloway, more than Terry Glenn, and we'll get you the trade in a moment. But look, here's your wide receiver pick. We know what Hines wore. They re-signed him and they had to, but they lost Antoine Randall to the Redskins. Cedric Wilson came on, made some big catches in the playoffs, you remember. Quincy Morgan, they kind of got middle season. So again, they have players. They definitely have players. But Santonio Holmes, look, here is an offense that is just starting to feel itself long with Ben Roethlisberger 2 years into it and 1 Super Bowl ring.
And this is the system he's in Ohio State. It's the same system. We want to run the ball, but when we get an opportunity, we need you to step up and make a play. He did that at Ohio State. That's exactly what Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers will expect him to do here. He's not the kind of guy that's going to take over a game from the wide receiver position. But when a play needs to be made, he'll step up and make that play.
I also believe it's worth mentioning that when Coach Cowher drafts, he not only drafts that player, he drafts a Pittsburgh Steeler. And what I mean by that, he drafts for the character of a Steeler, a guy who's going to be great in the locker room, a guy who's going to give complete effort when we're on the field, a guy who's going to be able to fight some adversity with him, which actually they took the toughest road to winning the Super Bowl. It's that kind of guy that they drafted at wide receiver, Boone.
So let's see here, the trade. Well, we'll get that for you here in a minute. The Giants got a 3rd and a 4th.
Pretty good for the Giants.
Down 7 spots, huh?
That's how much
Pittsburgh
they want
gets the offensive player that they weren't sure they were going to get at the bottom of the 1st round.
A lot of corners on the board if the Giants want a corner. We have 2 receivers still on the board for the Giants as well. So they're going to get a guy that they would have targeted probably at 25. They get an extra pick in the 3rd, an extra pick in the 4th. That's a good deal for Ernie Accorsi and company.
Admittedly, Super Bowl champs, it's the last pick in those rounds, but it's still...
It tells you how much the Steelers valued Santonio Holmes to give up a 3rd and a 4th for this pick.
Well, they want to keep pushing the envelope, even though they theoretically are a grinded-out football team. When we return, we'll be back with the Bears.
Under Armour Draft Flashback.
Dallas Cowboys select on the 1st round Marshall Urban, wide receiver, Miami.
Dallas Cowboys, Super Bowl bound next year. Super Bowl bound. What's going down? Huh? Who goes Super Bowl next year? Hey, I do look a lot alike, like I did then. I look a lot like I did then. But I did promise, and we did get 3 Super Bowls, right? So I did promise. Super Bowl bound.
McNeil, I would say Justice or McNeil.
So,
looked like a gold medal to me. What was that? Or a gold bowling ball around your neck.
A little fun. It was a little fun.
Okay, and now we're going down to Susie Colbert.
Well, wide receiver memories for Michael and plenty of wide receiver memories now for Santonio Holmes, picked by the Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers. Santonio joins us from Belgrade, Florida. Santonio, describe the difference between how you felt about 15 minutes ago and how you feel right now.
Oh man, it's just a wonderful feeling to be selected right now. No matter how long it took me to get off the board, I'm just blessed right now to have the opportunity to be selected by Pittsburgh Steelers.
You've been on the phone with head coach Bill Cowher. What did he have to say?
Oh man, he said he's very excited about me coming up, and he's ready, to get started with building the program. Continuing the dynasty that the Pittsburgh Steelers have.
What did the legacy of receivers at Ohio State represent to you?
The legacy of the receivers at Ohio State, what they represent to me is a lot of class, dignity that the guys have, and just the hard work that those guys have been, portraying all year. And those guys come back and they talk to the younger guys and they help encourage those guys a whole lot. And it's really meant a lot to me, because they showed me a lot in what it takes really to be a Buckeye receiver at Ohio State.
How do you think that translates into the Steelers' mentality?
Oh man, getting the opportunity to play for these guys, It's a dream come true right now. I've been liking the Pittsburgh Steelers since about 1995, and right now I'm just very excited to play for them.
Congratulations on your selection.
Thank you, Susie.
Santonio Holmes, now a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The next pick is in. Let's join the commissioner.
With the 26th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, just acquired from the Chicago Bears, the Buffalo Bills select John McCargo, defensive tackle, North Carolina State.
3 North Carolina State defensive linemen.
Yeah, but wait a minute now. Now, Mel, this, I think, a little bit of a curveball.
Very much so. I think you're looking at a guy maybe late second, mid-second. I know some teams had a higher grade than that, but all I can say is you look at a guy who was productive when he was healthy. Did have some injury issues the last couple of years and certainly benefited by being on a line with Mario Williams and Manny Lawson. The kid does have some talent. I projected him to be a second. At one point, I thought 3rd or 4th round. So you're talking about a guy in the last projection I did had late second. You're going to trade up into the 26th spot, give up a 3rd round pick to the Bears. Great move from Chicago. I would question it more for the Buffalo Bills. I thought going up, who's playing offensive tackle? Mike Gandy, Jason Peters. I thought maybe you go up and get a Winston Justice at this point to take a defensive tackle like McCargo. We're talking about reaches and whatever. There are some teams that like McCargo. Now, there's someone that thought 3rd or 4th round like I did because of the fact that he's going to hold up from a durability standpoint in the National Football League.
Well, let me ask you this, though. So the Buffalo Bills picked 8th in the 1st round, and they took Dante Whitner of Ohio State as safety. Where did you project him to go?
I thought he'd go around 13. I project him 16 to Miami.
Okay, and then this pick, you pick it in the 2nd round. So they
at one point in time, I thought McCargo would be a 3rd or 4th round draft.
So we can say with 2 first-round picks, they have reached.
I think that not for Whitner. I think Whitner
at 8, at number 8. I've never heard Dante Whitner as a top 10
but
pick.
they needed the safety, and they saw already the fact that when you look at what was coming off the board after that, I think they saw situations develop where they're getting concerned. Are we going to lose Dante Whitner? So I can understand that. He was a hot guy in the 2 months leading up to the draft. John McCargo, I know some people did like. There were those that thought he could be a late 1st, early 2nd. I wasn't one of those.
Mel, help me figure this out. They got 3 defensive linemen in the 1st round. What was their record last year?
North Carolina State.
What was the record? North Carolina State.
North Carolina State has 3 defensive linemen in the 1st round. He wants to know the record.
What was the record last year?
6-5.
Mario Williams, he was there too. That's what we dropped him.
All right, so the Bills hope that John McCargo is clutch McCargo. And now here's Carolina, a team that was a Final Four team last year, despite all the injuries, won 2 road games in the playoffs.
With the 27th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select D'Angelo Williams, running back from Memphis.
And there you go. Remember how they ended the playoffs with every of their running backs hurt? I love this kid.
Love him.
I love this kid.
Love him.
Production, Mel? Oh, my goodness, for Memphis.
Exactly. New England took Lawrence Maroney. I thought D'Angelo Williams would be in the mix there. Certainly for Carolina, you look at a team now that has security behind Deshaun Foster. Now, they have Eric Shelton. They drafted him in the 2nd round last year. A little spotty, a little iffy on what kind of progress he would be able to make as a big back coming into a 2nd year now in the NFL. I think D'Angelo Williams, though, the offensive line at Memphis, not that good, yet the productivity never dropped. You talk about his ability to catch the football. He's certainly better than adequate in that area. And then after the catch, you see the balance and the toughness to break tackles. A kid who has the ability, I think, to change direction in the hole. Good feet, very shifty. I'm not about to compare him to any former number 20 like Barry Sanders, but this kid, despite the fact that offensive line at Memphis, like I say, below average, you see him here, nothing in the initial hole, pops outside, and then has the speed to turn the corner and take it the distance. D'Angelo Williams was a heck of a back. He showed he could catch the football adequately. He's a good kid. He's a hard worker. There's some questions. Well, he had an injury. He bowed out of the Tennessee game. The kid, the coach there, you're talking about a situation with Tommy West. He knew he wasn't healthy. For him to be ready for the end of the season, they needed to win games to go to a bowl. D'Angelo Williams stepped up when he needed to, and I think this is a nice pick. The security behind Deshaun Foster they now have.
Just look at this. 6,000 yards rushing. Production, hello. Behind only, as you mentioned, Dane, Ricky Williams, Tony Dorsett. I mean, I don't care who you're playing against. 6,000 yards, why? It's a lot of carries. But it is certainly big-time production. Well, before we move on to what Carolina just did, let's move back for a moment to, on our Coors Light video conferencing, to the coach of the, I just want to say this loud enough so we can hear it in Pittsburgh. Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers. I know that sounds good to you, Bill Cowher. So you moved up for offense. Randall L. out, Santonio Holmes, you couldn't resist.
Well, Chris, I mean, he was a guy that as he slipped further down, we felt like he was a guy that would fit what we were trying to accomplish today and getting a receiver that could stretch the field and also getting a returner. We feel good about Cedric Wilson coming back with Nate Washington, Quincy Morgan, Sean Morey, but we think the opportunity to get a receiver who also returns fills a big thing that we tried to accomplish today.
What is, obviously you don't just replace a guy like a Jerome Bettis and you don't just plug somebody in like that coming out of college, but how can you go about, what is your goal here in trying to replace at least his productivity, if not his presence? That'll have to come.
Well, the presence, that will take care of itself. You know, you lose people like Chemo, Antoine, and Jerome. That will have to take place in the locker room, and that'll be the evolution. But, you know, even from a running back standpoint, Willie Parker, Deuce Staley, Veron Haynes, we feel good about those guys. I mean, they're coming back again, and again, you know, we were able to get San Antonio and so we feel good about that. So, I mean, obviously there were some good players still left, but we felt that this was a quality player that fit not just the one position of receiver, but also the return element as well.
Bill, can you describe a little bit? I know you're looking forward and the goal is next year, and you'll remind your players, hey, we didn't even win our division. I made your first speech for you. But I was in Pittsburgh last week, and I mean, you couldn't go anywhere without, has the town even begun to come down from what you guys accomplished on the field? What's life been like in Pittsburgh the last 3 months?
You know what? I think it's great for the town. The important thing is that our players come down. So as we start to come back for this off-season program, we got to get back to that foundation. All the guys, most of the guys are in town working. There's a real healthy atmosphere, and we recognize it's going to be harder this year. We weren't the best team last year. We played good football at the end of the season, but it still goes back to that foundation, the off-season program, training camp. We have a lot of holes to fill, and we got a lot of groundwork to make. So I think we're doing that right now. I like the attitude of what I've seen, and hopefully can add a few more good players today and tomorrow.
I can't imagine one of your teams wouldn't be hungry. We're not going to be the first, but we certainly won't be the last. To all of us here, congratulations on an unbelievable job last year, and go get back to work. Thank you.
Thanks, Boomer.
All right, Coach Bill Cowher, who people were reminded, you know, he's a pretty good coach. 14 years, what's the matter? He can't win. Never going to have to hear it again. Now, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers have a great chance, even though the AFC is loaded. The quarterback that rarely loses games and a hungry team, maybe they have a chance to win 2 in a row. It was quite a season last year in Pittsburgh, winning unprecedented all those road playoff games. They finally had a, quote, home game in the Super Bowl when they beat the Seattle Seahawks. So the Steelers moved up quickly to take Santonio Holmes with 25. We gave you the details of that. It cost them the 3 and a 4. Jacksonville is next on the clock. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team that won 12 games, although you don't think of them in the same way. They're a wild card team. Went into New England and were beaten. Byron Leftwich became the leader of the team. This is one of the biggest teams that you will see. Let's go up to the commissioner and see if he takes, I think, maybe a big tight end. I mean, this is a large team. I look for a big guy.
With the 28th choice in the 2006 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Mercedes Lewis, tight end from UCLA.
Like I said, a large guy, a big tight end that fits the mold of this team. And look, they've been playing with Brady there. This is a very good position for a 12 and 14 to upgrade.
Well, the kid's got pass-catching skills. Anytime you're 6'6" and a quarter, 260 pounds, boom, you know, he doesn't have great speed. Long stride around a 4.83 at the combine. Did vertical 37 inches, caught a lot of passes in this UCLA offense. Had an excellent senior year until later in the season. I thought he tailed off. Then at the Senior Bowl practices was very quiet, while Dominique Byrd from USC was having a great week. So I think you look at a guy like this and you say, okay, will he be able to separate, get open in the National Football League without having the great speed? But he's a big target. He's got excellent hands. As I said, he caught a ton of balls in that UCLA Bruin offense, and he fills a neat area for the Jaguars. He has been projected to go there for about the last month and a half. So the Jaguars, true to form, need an interior offensive line and went away from Nick Mangold to take Mercedes Lewis.
Now we have 4 picks left in the first round, and it's going to be the second time up for the Jets. We'll be back.